Hey everyone, it's me, Varlo. As many of you know, I'm a massive Sonic the Hedgehog fan, and I was super ecstatic to try out the all-new Sonic Superstars game that just released. From the first trailer, I was just in awe about how great the game looks, but with Sonic games you never really know for sure until you try them out for yourself. After playing the game up until Press Factory Zone, I think I'm finally ready to make a short video talking about my first impressions about the game thus far. I've seen a lot of discourse about certain things in this game that I both agree with and disagree with. As always, I wanted to throw my 2 cents in and tell you all what I think. Without further ado, let's get into it. Something right off the bat that resonated with me was the presentation and the performance. This game runs awesome on PC. If I'm recalling correctly, this is the only Sonic game in recent years that actually lets you unlock the frame rate. You won't be able to see it in this video, but this game ran so smoothly on my 165Hz monitor. The art style is also just fantastic. I love the vibrant colors and atmosphere. Sonic is always great when it comes to stuff like that, but this time they knocked it out of the park. Though I did hear rumblings that the original intention for this game was to have a 2D hand-drawn animation style like Cuphead, which would have been even cooler. I personally prefer the more modern pixel art style present in Sonic Mania, but the look of Superstars is still fantastic. I've heard a lot of complaints regarding the game requiring you to sign in with Epic Games before you play. Obviously, I'd prefer the game to not have this, because if I wanted to use my Epic Games account, I would have just bought it on there instead of Steam, but it really hasn't affected my experience that much at all. It's a minor inconvenience that I think is being blown way out of proportion. The real scummy part about the whole thing is that Sega hid this Epic Games integration and the presence of Denuvo in the game until after the game was released, and they still have yet to officially acknowledge it. Another point of contention I've seen a lot is regarding the music. It seems like not a lot of people are a fan of the soundtrack for some reason. It's not the greatest Sonic soundtrack of all time, but I still think it's pretty damn good and has a great groove to it. I can't remember a single song I've heard so far that I wasn't a fan of. Sonic music has always been pretty consistent, so I was never really worried about not liking the soundtrack. Jun Senue has had his fair share of Sonic missteps in his career, but the music of Sonic Superstars is definitely not one of them. One of the biggest advertising points of Sonic Superstars was that there is no returning zones at all. While that's technically true, most of the zones are using concepts that we've seen plenty of times before. Despite that, the levels have actually been pretty fun. I've heard that some parts of them feel too automated, which I do agree with to an extent, but these set pieces provide for some really cool visual stimulation for the player. I also think the difficulty is just right. I don't find the game too easy, apart from the ridiculously easy special stages, but I also don't think its challenging sections overstay their welcome. The bosses are pretty neat as well. They're definitely some of the most creative bosses we've seen in classic Sonic games. My only gripe is that there were some bosses where I couldn't really tell what I was supposed to do at first, but that might just be on me and not the game's fault. My enjoyment of the levels was also amplified through the great control I had over the characters. The physics feel spot on to the classic Sonic games. The only thing that I've had an issue with is that at times I feel like Sonic has too much momentum and it was hard to stop him. Again, this may not be a flaw with the game, it may just be on me. I spent almost all of my gameplay playing as Sonic, and he felt great. I also spent a zone playing as Amy, and she felt almost identical to how she felt in Origins Plus earlier this year. I haven't spent any time with Tails or Knuckles, but judging from how Sonic and Amy played, I'm sure they feel just right. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to try out one of the biggest selling points of this game, which is the multiplayer. One of the flagship features of this game is 4-player simultaneous multiplayer like in New Super Mario Bros. From what I've seen, it looks like a lot of fun. I'm curious to see how this will work considering the fast-paced nature of Sonic. I'm optimistic that Sega did a decent job at implementing this highly requested feature. I hopefully will be able to try it soon, but for the time being, I have no idea how it actually plays. Overall, I've enjoyed the time I've spent with Sonic Superstars so far. It's a good Sonic game and it's a great platformer that's been getting way more hate than it honestly deserves. Sega played it safe at times with this game, but that's okay. I definitely recommend this game to anyone on the fence. The only thing I will say is that Sonic Superstars is way too short to justify a $60 price tag. I'd wait for a sale or the inevitable Sonic Superstars Plus to get all those deluxe edition goodies for a way more reasonable price.